able to come together. But what is very important is that we are able to share this moment with all of you. I truly appreciate you guys coming out or joining us during this wonderful time. So if you, in the course of the discussion, if you feel that you have something you want me to ask them, please feel free to leave it in the comment section, please. So I say we are talking about everything, everything. So I think we are good to go, guys. You ready? William, you with me? Can you hear me
Yeah.
good? Okay,
Yeah,
Promise, what about you?
Yeah, I can hear
Now,
you.
now we can see your face.
Yes.
Okay. So I think, hello, my viewers. I think they don't need much presentation. As you can see, the names are identified below their image. So I would just like to say that Promise is a Nigerian, and mentioned earlier that we studied together in Ghana, but currently he is studying in Cambridge University, where he's working on his master's on social anthropology. While William is a Ghanaian and currently studying in the University of Sheffield. He's doing his master's in philosophy. So from the presentation, you could see that they are two great intellectuals, young, vibrant African intellectuals. And I think they have huge lot of knowledge that I would like them to share with my viewers and those listening. So thank you guys for making our time to come and to be with me this evening. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I prepared some questions, but I'm going straight to the point. I want us to speak from the heart. I prefer that when we speak from the heart, people could relate to us. People could relate with what we have to say. So we will be clear. Well, I want us to speak from the heart. I came across a quote from Nelson Mandela, which says that a young kid or a kid without education is like a bird without wings. For me, this is something which was kind of, it's very profound. It has deeper meaning. A kid without education is like a bird without wings. That there is no sense of purpose, which really means that education is like the bedrock, is the foundation of a human person. Looking at our brothers and sisters back in Africa and looking at most young people all over the world, what can you tell them regarding the importance of education? Since some of them think that education is something which is not necessary in their lives. I see some of them, and I give an example. You have universities in Europe that offers scholarship to African students. They leave Africa, they go to Italy, they go to some places in Europe or in America. After 1 month of registration, they forget about studies. They leave their studies entirely and they go into doing daily jobs to keep themselves going. So for them, and when you talk to some of them, they will tell you that no, education is secondary, it's not important, we have nothing about that. So you guys that have studied all your life and you're still studying, what can you say to these young people back home or where they are in their rooms right now? What can you say to them to truly encourage them regarding the importance of education?
So I think I will let Senior talk first before I go.
I
Senior,
promise you are more practical, so it'll be okay for you to set the tone. Otherwise, I don't want to run to the, you know what we do.
So I think there is a complex of factors involved in this. So first of all, we are talking about the incapacity of many states in Africa in terms of funding of educational institutions. And that partly explains why there is a sort of brain drain with a lot of people going out of the continent to find better opportunities abroad. And then we have another problem, which is poverty. And it's not because Africa doesn't have resources. Of course, the poverty is not because of the lack of resources. It's a lack of good leadership. leaders who actually make sure that the resources go as far as possible to the least person in their own politics. We've seen what has happened in Angola recently with the family that has dominated and taken all the money, and also in Nigeria and a bunch of other places in Africa. So these two factors actually come together if you are going to explain why people do what they do abroad. So these are people, some of them who actually come from very poor backgrounds, and they want to use education as a sort of a background to leave the continent, because getting a visa is very hard. If you're going to get to Europe or to America without a visa, it's going to be very hard. So they get there, and then they want to find jobs to compensate for what they can't get back home. So if we are going to talk about this, I think we have to set the tone. First of all, that our education is not really of very good standard. And secondly, the continent, a lot of people are going through a lot in terms of the distribution of resources. Those explain why people do what they do in Europe. I think Kombian can actually give us a better view on that.
Okay, just to, I wouldn't like to repeat the point that Prof has already made. So I'd like to tackle a different point altogether. And when you talk of a young man coming all the way to Europe, getting registered in a university, and then opting out to chase after work or money, I begin to see the problem from this point of view. That, first of all, in Africa, there's a phenomenon. Well, it's not only limited to us, but I see it in Africa, and it has to do with valuing things for value sake. For example, over here, somebody can devote his time, say 40 years, to study something and specialize so well in that thing, to the extent that anytime society needs that person, he's the one they call on to lay his expertise to bear. But you realize that those who devote themselves to that kind of specialization, they often easily find funding or support to do whatever it is that they want to do. But in our part of the world, I remember some of my friends are still asking me, a young man like you, why are you wasting your time on philosophy? Why don't you study engineering and all of that? So now, if we had value for value's sake, if we valued education for what it is and not instrumentally what it will lead us to, it will make us reposition ourselves to do things right in education. So that's the first thing. The second thing has to do with a phenomenon that is perpetuated by religion and politics. You'd realize that in Africa, the two dominant cliques are either religious or they are political. So, for you to get into that clique, there are certain standards that you must meet. Either you must have a certain level of wealth or a certain level of influence or power in society. If you lack this, it's almost as if there is no hope for you to enter into that clique. Now, it is that thing is radicalized most in religion and in politics. So we have the political elites who have made of themselves political godfathers and select who actually makes it to the top. And even in religion, you will see that to belong to the religious upper class, say the pastors or the bishops or whatever we call them, is a privilege, and everybody would want to belong there. And these things are determined by your level of influence, power, or wealth. So imagine an African young man comes here. He comes to Europe, not just to remain in Europe, but to change his life so that when he goes back to Africa, he will at least belong in one or two of these cliques. So the focus will not be education for education's sake, but to make good use of the opportunities available, to get enough money or influence, so that when he goes back to Africa, he comes back as a rich man. And obviously one of these cliques will open up and give him that influence. So he joins, he also gets the opportunity to feel privileged in society. So these are the two angles I'm looking at to see in relation to the problem you are talking about. So when these things become the focus of education, we miss the mark. Somebody can decide to specialize all his life on philosophy of mind alone or logic alone. I mean, what will that give you in Africa? Nothing, unless maybe you become a poor university professor. So if we value education for education's sake and not what it leads us to, then I think it will begin to change a lot of things. So those two will be the first two observations I'd like to point out.
I do want to, yeah. I, can I make a point, a little bit of a point,
Sure,
if you don't
sure.
mind? So, part of what Senior has mentioned is actually also connected to the economic level, because
Yes,
when people are stressed economically, they can't value art or knowledge for knowledge's sake, you know. Um,
that's true. That's true.
yeah, because right now, I believe most African countries are still on, in terms of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Oh yeah,
We're still at the bottom of those needs. You know, we are trying to accomplish, satisfy our basic necessities. We've not gotten to the point of, say, Norway or Sweden or Oslo or some of the Scandinavian countries where fulfillment is something they are trying to achieve now. They are not talking about achieving the basic amenities like basic electricity and stuff like that. So when you have factors like that, which is obviously connected to what Senior has mentioned, the politics of the countries in Africa, when you have that kind of issue, it is difficult for people to appreciate knowledge for knowledge's sake.
that's true. That's true.
Wow. Wow. I'm speechless, but also I have the ability to speak, so I have to speak definitely by asking you guys some questions, follow-up questions. Will I really think that what you guys have really touched some sensitive points, and I could see from the comment section that somebody's mentioning that we need a total overhaul of our educational system. We need to contextualize our educational system in Africa. That the African leaders they need to do that. David Ubuntu is the one mentioning that in the comments. And I think, Promise, this kind of leads to a point he mentioned that in Africa, education is not a good standard. I hope I'm not misquoting you, but I feel that that's what I heard. But now, when I think about this thing you said, and I look at great institutions we have in Africa, like the Kwame Nkrumah University of in Ghana, it's a very good university. University of Ibadan, we have the University of Nairobi. It's a good university with good standard of education. So why do you think that our African brothers and sisters in diaspora, as well as those within the country, cannot have good education from these institutions in Africa? Why do you think they have to run out to get something like that?
Yeah. So again, it's connected to the politics of education, because, like Senior has mentioned, if you want to have good education, the state has to step in. First of all, it has to provide the funds. Most of our institutions are underfunded, because again, it goes back to they not seeing, the politicians not seeing that we need very good institutions, and a lot of people are not talking about education. They are talking about having maybe some food on the table. They don't see how much education is connected to having a good life in general. You see, so the first point I want to make about it is we can deal with it if the politics is restructured in such a way that we begin to see our educational institutions as the lifeblood of our society. Education is what enables social reproduction. If you don't have good educational institutions, you can't have a good social reproduction. So that is the first thing that should actually respect and come to terms with. And once they come to this, then we can talk about how do we fund this research that our people do. What kind of research do we fund? Is it only about law and medicine in Africa? Because a lot of people want to just, in Nigeria, for instance, people talk about medicine and law. These days, they're talking about engineering.
Even in Congo,
Nobody wants to do any
Congo.
other thing, right? Pardon? Yeah, so that is the problem. Once there are problems like this, problems with people seeing education as only something that enables the satisfaction of basic needs, that is a problem. We need to shift that mentality, and there the politics is very important, because if there is enough funding for every kind of research, then people will appreciate it for what it is. So I don't know what you have other perspective, senior.
Okay. Uh, in terms of education, it's not as if the African universities do not have the ability to give us the quality. No, but I think Prof has already said it stems from funding, and if we look away from funding, in fact, I want to explain the point of lack of funding, and I want to blame it on something else. It has to do with a certain posture of the African politician. It's almost as if every African politician, well, not only African politician, everywhere, but it's prevalent in Africa, that they prefer their sheep docile. And the less educated your populace are, the more docile they are. And the few elites you have in the system, the easier it is for you to bypass them and go to the masses. Just appeal to the masses and you have things done. So some African politicians genuinely are afraid of having large educated populace, because that will mean these are guys who are up there, can understand the issues and judge them accordingly, vote them accordingly, and cut them to their sizes. So why would I be the one to fund a generation that will come back against me? That kind of mentality. So we prefer to keep our sheep docile all the time. So the less educated you are, we throw some few coins at you, and oh yeah, this man is good. That's it. So that's
No, it's a good point you're hitting on.
It's actually a very good point.
Yes.
And this also goes back to the lack of funding for something like philosophy. And not funding history, because if people know a lot about history, they're going to question the system.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
and we are operating democracy. We are just a small observation. We are operating a democracy where in Ghana or in Nigeria, the number of votes you gain determine who becomes the president at the end of the day. So if we have very few educated people, let them do all the talking and do all the publications. They can talk all the grammar they want. We are okay. But we will always know where to go to solicit for our vote. And once it is always rich, in fact, the less educated populace are the richest vote baskets. You can always go to them with anything and they will jump at you. So I think we have to speak to our leaders and ask them to sit up and begin to act selflessly, because we can't continue to go in this path. It's unfair to a whole, in fact, not just to our generation, but to generations yet to come. It's very unfair.
Wow. So okay, I'm gonna ask a question based on what William said, because he mentioned about what I call the sheep syndrome. They want their sheep to be docile, that they're not the willingness to educate the mass people that are gonna that they feel, due to their insecurities, they feel that they're gonna oppose them, so they don't want to educate them. They want to rather they want to tame the sheep. They tame their sheep, so they just follow them blindly. So William, with this, it rings my head that education is not only a communal responsibility, but more importantly, a personal responsibility.
Of course it is.
So now, what can you say, or how can you create that awareness to our young brothers and sisters out there, that they should the importance, they should take education as their own, first of all, the personal responsibility. As in, they have to be curious. What I don't know, hard. What can you say to them?
Okay. I think in our day and age, uh, the starting point of promise is something I really have to get back to. And it has to do with the economics of African countries. Now, you would realize that there are a lot of free materials online, a lot of educational stuff that you can easily access without even going to university. And if you were to pay sufficient attention to a lot of information flying out there, you will educate yourself very well. So there's this American white lady who is in Ghana. I met him. We were having a chat. She was telling us that anyone who decides to be ignorant in this day and age is only doing so deliberately. So there are a lot of information out there in this day and age that we can easily access to inform ourselves, to improve our situation. But it comes down to the ability to access that information and whether people even know of that information in the first place. So imagine there are online videos that are giving you tuition when it comes to logic. So you are somebody who wants to educate yourself or want to improve your logic. There are a lot of online videos that you can read to improve yourself as much as somebody who sits in a lecture hall. But the question is, that's African youth. He goes out from the morning till the evening and only comes back with, say, 20 Ghana cedis, which I don't know how much it will be in Nigeria. And you should know 20 Ghana cedis is just about, it's less than £3. Now, if a young man goes out the whole day and comes back with less than £3 or 20 Ghana cedis, he already has to take care of some bills, his own personal expenses, feeding and all of that. Now, how much is left for him to buy internet bundle to be able to access information as much as he wants? How much? He can't. So it's not as if some of them are deliberately doing it, but poverty is pushing some of them to that extent. Now, if you take away poverty, another point, I will not take the blame away from the individual entirely. Some of us are also deliberately making ourselves ignoramus. Because the small data you have, instead of using it on WhatsApp and chatting endlessly and cracking all the jokes there are in the world and being the great comedian of our generation, which will actually earn you nothing, why can't you use that to read very informative articles? Coronavirus is going on. What do you know about it? Because you yourself have failed to read. Somebody comes up and said, oh, 5G is causing this, which scientifically is nonsense, but you will buy it because you have not even made any attempt to read on your own. I remember, just this example will end my point. I was having a chat with someone on a WhatsApp platform, and he was insisting that 5G is what and what. So I fetch him all the publications we've had so far on coronavirus since it started. All the publications, I didn't leave out one. And I sent it to him and asked him to go through and point just one with sufficient scientific evidence to show that there's a relation between 5G and coronavirus. Now, so you see, our failure to improve ourselves makes us so vulnerable to anything. So I first of all motivate the individual, even though the poverty situation is serious in Africa, but you have to make a personal effort. That anytime you have that 50 megabytes of data or 1 gigabyte, don't spend it on needless videos that will not take you anywhere. Why can't you read or access information that can improve you? I mean, that's the whole point.
That's a very good point, actually, Senior. So talking about personal responsibility, when you shift this argument a little bit and play around it, it's more or less like a structural agency debate. Whether the structure is responsible for what individuals do, or whether individuals are responsible for what is going on in their lives in terms of education. I don't want to, decide between which them is which in terms of, what I would say is that when you talk about personal responsibility, I'm speaking from a Nigerian context. it is very hard if you don't have the resources. For instance, you have the challenge of electricity, which is still very, very problematic. To make this call, for instance, I had to sort of get generator, I had to buy fuel, I had to fix up a lot of things to get this stuff up and running. And that means you have to have the money, you have to have the resources to afford it, right? So if you are actually going to study in a context and to be responsible for your education, you need to have this basic stuff already for yourself. And believe me, a lot of people cannot afford it. They can't afford it. So the resources again is something that is so problematic. But again, for some people who can actually afford the little internet and the little data, which is very expensive, very exorbitant for a lot of people to afford, because if you are going to sort of be watching videos with your megabytes in Africa, you must be a very rich man, of course. You must be a rich man. Because even at least with the minimum resources I have, I know how difficult it is to sort of keep up with my lifestyle in the UK. But in any case, what I want to say is that the personal responsibility has to also go with a little bit outside this our own continent, helping to sensitize some of our people. There are a lot of people who want to have the opportunity to study, and there is nobody sensitizing them. I know this guy. His name is Shadrach Frimpong. He's Ghanaian. Um, he's not from a very good background in terms economically, but it was his students in the high school, in Opokuwari Senior High School, that he got a very good tutors, and they encouraged him to apply to the US and to write the exams. They even paid for him to write the exams. He was able to get into University of Pennsylvania. After his bachelor's, he did very well. He continued to Yale, where he did his master's. And as of this year, this guy actually just recently won Gates Cambridge Scholarship at the University of Cambridge. And he'll be doing his PhD from October um, in public health and primary care. So this is someone who didn't actually come from a very rich background or very privileged background. But given the fact that there are some people around him who actually encouraged him, that actually made him responsible, more responsible for his own future. And he took that opportunity and he's never looking back. So I think personal responsibility also has to come with opportunity. And what are the opportunities available for people? It is like the capabilities that Amartya Sen talks about. Freedom is more or less like about the opportunities that you provide for people to use. If there is no opportunity, there is no capability, there is no freedom for them to explore and be who they should be, then whatever we say about personal responsibility is going to be futile.
Now, I think I will have to just add one point, and this, I think that we have to throw the challenge to our professors out there in Africa and those who are in university. I think we have to take the bull by the horns, look our politicians in the face, and tell them what we need to tell them. The VC of the University of Ibadan should be able to tell Buhari that, Mr. President, you can't continue to starve my university. The Vice Chancellor of University of Ghana should be able to look Anado in the face and tell him, Mr. President, I need this amount of money to raise this kind of leaders for the tomorrow of Ghana. If our professors don't begin to challenge them, but begin to dance to their tune, whether they want to be appointed VCs or whatever it is, I think we'll never go anywhere. You know, society is built when we all begin to challenge ourselves in our own small ways. So as we talk to the youth, we also talk to the elderly that do well to create the opportunity in Africa so that there will come a time when the education Kombian will receive in Sheffield, another young man in Ghana can receive that in University of Ghana, so that we will have to broaden the opportunity. even though there are opportunities out there, as Prof was mentioning, but if it is broadened to make sure that we have localized those opportunities and made them easily accessible to the people without them having to travel distance or across continents to access those opportunities, we will actually be broadening the base for as many people to be educated as possible. So I think that's also another thing we have. So our professors, the academics, they actually have the true definition of freedom. They should be able to look our politicians in the face and tell them, you didn't give me my PhD. This is what I can do with my PhD, and I need the funding. If you want, we will take you on and educate the people that you are the cause of the mess in our education, and not we those who are administering our universities. If we begin to get bold and to confront our reality with this kind of courage, I think we will begin to make headways. We cannot let the politician always have his way. It's almost like the politician has a pass anywhere he goes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't get that.
Yeah. Wow, and I think I completely agree to what you guys are saying, because it comes back to the same thing you mentioned earlier on. What let us just throw some things to them during the elections, and then what you say, the sheep becomes docile. I promise. I have a question for you, and that is, you spoke about opportunities. That somebody might not be rich, might not be from a rich background, a rich family, but sometimes he's lucky to have the opportunity to be sponsored by people around him, and this is an invitation to you're inviting the generosity of people around, which is very good. But now, if someone who is very talented, naturally talented, gifted in a particular craft, and he or she is within the context whereby people are not all, don't all, those around him, they don't have that opportunity in terms of financial in terms of, we're talking of fundings. Financially, they don't have anything to do to help him. They really want to help, but they cannot help. So what can you say to such a person or to such community? How can they help this young man to nurture his talent, to bring his talent to light? You understand my question?
You can give only what you have. That I think is a very, very serious principle. I think in philosophy, you don't give what you don't have. So if the people around you, if you are surrounded by people who know nothing about opportunities, definitely they can't tell you about opportunities. They can't provide the opportunities for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more or less like a very secular, should I say, an argument that I'm
Mm-hmm.
making.
Yeah.
Because imagine you live in a context of people who don't know who can't speak English. How do you speak English in that context? You need to transcend that community.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a sort of an external penetration,
Mm-hmm.
right? A sort of external approach or external factor that comes in to sort of do away a little bit with some of the prejudices that are in those communities. Remember, if we go back as far back as the 1920s or the 1930s, I was reading this some time ago. I do anthropology a lot these days, so I read a lot of things about Africa. We had smallpox and measles. We had that.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the communities in Lagos, the native communities, didn't want they felt it was a curse from God. And they didn't want the medical doctors to interfere to even check and diagnose whether this was something that they could cure at the time. So the smallpox kept on circling around the community, and a lot of people were, taking it around themselves. And at some point, some of them even began to think that having smallpox was part of their culture. So to have a smallpox, to become a part of the community, you have to have the smallpox, and you have to show it to people that you have smallpox. That is a level of a little bit of ignorance in some of
That's,
the African
that was a
communities.
pathetic internalization of
You,
something so serious.
and you see the same with Maurice Lesso. You're from Calabar, Nelson, and you know very well how There were, they used to kill twins in Africa. And the idea was that twins were punishment from God. How could such a thing happen? And they had to take some of these twins, put them in the evil forest for the animals and the wildlife to take their lives. And a lot of babies, a lot of kids lost their lives. So how do you enlighten people when the community is full of people of the same mind and the same mentality? There's not going to be an opening in that context. So we need a sort of what they call in international relations an external intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And the external intervention has to come not by telling people that what they are doing is wrong. That is not what I'm saying. But trying to provide information, because I believe information is power. You have to
Mm-hmm.
persuade them, to convince them that perhaps what you are doing, you could do it better in a different way. There could be better explanations than what you have already. You don't need to condemn anyone to tell them that what they believe is wrong or right. You just have to tell them that maybe they should start thinking of a different way of looking at the world. Because the rationality of most African societies, which is based on religion, is different from the rationality of some of the people in the Western Hemisphere. And you have to find a bridge through persuasion. That is how we live in societies of tolerance. So when I talk about opportunities, I'm talking about providing a counter information uh, to communities that are so close to themselves. We have to provide them the opportunities through providing information because they need to have this good information to be able to contest their own beliefs and their own claims. This is the point I want to make.
Okay. Senior, I have a question for you. Thank you,
Go
Promise,
ahead.
for that point. Senior, you mentioned that it's very important for university lecturers in Africa for them to be able to tell the president or the leaders that we need investment in the educational sector. Not only the educational sector, but in general, in the life of the people. Like you said, an invitation to let them know that your treatment is bad. You are treating the people unjustly. These people voted for you out of love and confidence. But from the look of things, we've seen that you are manipulating them. You are inviting the lecturers, right? But
Yes.
now, how do we conscientize the, excuse my language, the illiterate in the society, the uneducated in the society, that the political leaders are being able to manipulate? How do we conscientize them? Now, I'm not talking about it because the lecturers can try. For example, in Ghana, when J.K. Rawlings, Rawlings, the former president of Ghana, when he tried the coup d'état, and he was caught several as a person. He was caught twice. He was punished, and we know that in Africa, so many coup d'état, there were like repercussions to that. This is one man trying to go against a tyrant. But now, how can you invite the masses?
When J.K. Rawlings,
How can you invite the
Okay.
masses
Okay.
to attack,
when
or not? Excuse my language, okay? Not attack like physical attack with violently, but to let the leaders know that we are tired of you treating us unjustly. We are speaking not for ourselves. We don't need one person elsewhere, or we don't need the United Nations. We don't need president, any president in Europe or in America to draw your awareness. But we, though we are not educated, but we can see that what you are doing to us is bad. How can you conscientize them?
Okay. I think first of all, it starts with sometimes some people are able to, through their own efforts, break free from something that is holding them captive. Others need some intervention, as Prof was saying, and this is perfectly illustrated in Plato's allegory of the cave. You're
Mm-hmm.
sitting in there, you have no idea. You think the shadow you see there is all there is, not knowing that some people are passing and their shadows are thrown on the wall. So you are taking that to mean the real. So you would need somebody to break you out of that situation. And that is where we, those who have had the privilege, should come in. At every material moment, we get the opportunity, like we are doing now. It should not be to tell those who are back home that, hey, Charlie, I come Europe, I come Russell Group University, so I make fire pass you. No, no. That should not be the thing. It
I
should not
like
be that
that.
I made some few pounds, so I come back, I can buy cars and I can snatch your girlfriends. Hell no. The value of education comes down to how well informed you live. So that first, your life is a message to your community, and then you add the message of your mouth to help transform the society. So you don't just transform by your mouth alone, but by your own life. So you let us know that, okay, Kombian has studied philosophy. It means he's very critical. How does he approach issues? Does he jump at issues like any other person does? If I do that, it means I've thrown away the logic I've suffered to study. I've thrown away the metaphysics and epistemology, and I'm just being ordinary. So my life should be able to be somebody who is very critical and measured in what I do. So that somebody looking at me and it says, I find inspiration in this man. Then I should be able to also use social media, mainstream media, any platform at all I get, any encounter I get with, especially the young ones. Talk to them, tell them that, hey, this is not it. So we beg you, MPP and NDC, they are the trouble in Ghana. They are actually not the salvation of Ghana. So when one of them gets the opportunity and they are telling you, oh yeah, this is this, and they're giving you all the nice statistics, just take a step back and look at them with double eyes. Don't just swallow it like that because I am NPP. I have always had my reservations about those things. And it's the same in Nigeria. You can see Buhari's party is it APC, right?
Yeah.
Buhari's party is APC, right?
APC,
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
and the other every system, it comes down to two dominant political parties. They will, and somebody made an analogy that just as the religious fears hell, the politician fears being in opposition. So in politics, being in opposition is equal to hell, and being in power is equal to being in heaven. just as so the biggest fear of the politician is to go back into opposition. And if we those who have had the opportunity, begin to enlighten the youth, so that the politicians are now saying that, hey, if we don't set up the level of sensitization, the level of education going on with the youth, they will rise against us or they will vote us out. It will force the politicians to act. And that is why I believe that the first condition of accountability is the extent of civic education in that system. So in a democracy, if people are fairly enlightened, that level of enlightenment itself is a check on the government, because the government knows that whatever I do, people know what is going on. So I can't take anyone for granted. But when education is so low, civic education is low, and all forms of education is so low, government knows I can do whatever I want and have my way with it. So we, those who are here, should first of all make of ourselves good examples, inspire other young people to be able to do something for themselves, and ultimately we should speak up against what is going on in our society, and we should not fear being tagged. If what my president is doing is not the best thing, in my own estimation, I should be able to write objectively and let somebody else read and get a sense of it. So we should have that courage, not just leave it to the professors alone, but we ourselves should also be able to confront our reality. And once it begins to catch fire, you will see that it will permeate everywhere. That young man will hear of it, go home and tell his uncle, the uncle will tell the auntie will tell the mom, and it's spreading. So we really need that. Everybody has to do his best, especially those of us who are lucky enough to have had this level of education.
Okay. Thank you. And I think I will move to. I was trying to link this education with two institutions you guys mentioned earlier on. You spoke about religion and politics, and in order for you to belong to these institutions, you need to have a sense of power, right? And now I look at Africa. Mbiti once says that Africans are notoriously, are incurably religious. Like we hold religion so dear, you know. And when I don't want to say in my travels or in my missionary, in my mission work or my journeys, but excuse me to say that I've seen that we apply too much sentiment to religion. There's no balance between faith and religion. That there's too much sentiment. What am I trying to say? A young man full of energy prefers to spend 2 hours in front of the Blessed Sacrament. I'm not saying it's bad. It's good. But he prefers to spend 2 hours in front of the Blessed Sacrament praying to God to send manners from above. That's that's the first example I'm giving. Second example has to do with my village, my own village, right? My own village. There's a school for kids, a nursery primary school. If I show you the photos of this school, the building, I've been going to the village since I was a kid. And the way it has been since then, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's still the same way today. Very dilapidated. And you ask yourself, how do kids manage in this place? When it's raining, no windows, it can be very cold. But now, few kilometers from my village, you have a huge church, build a huge parish. I'm giving my village as an example. I can mention so many places, so many countries where I've been to. You see same thing. You see a huge building of church. And in Nigeria, for instance, there are churches springing up every day. Somebody just wake up and open a church. And yet, the school system is very dilapidated. So how do you let people know that they need to be a balance? They need to have a sense of priority. I'm not saying religion is bad. I'm not saying politics is bad. They're all good. But how do you let people, our young people out there, know that education and religion, there's a link between both, and in fact, how to set priorities.
Prof, you remember when we were about to come on? I was telling you, I am afraid of being in the abstract. This is one of the questions I feared. So I'll let you go ahead and so that it will help me to calm down. Otherwise, if I start on ontological notes, I don't know where this will end us.
So the first thing we have to begin with is to ask what religion is, all right, and to understand how it moves, how it operates, especially in the African context, vis-a-vis the Western or European or American context. And you see that they operate in different ways in these different societies. So I don't want to sound very evolutionary, because a lot of people think that, we are still, primitive and backward, and there is another society who have actually done away with religion. It's not like that. It's not as if some societies have done away with religion and then we are still with religion. We are still caught up with religion. You will still find religious people in Europe, in America, in Australia, as much as you will find people who are secular. The problem of most African societies today is that the background religion before Christianity, has intermingled with modernity in such a way that it's difficult to know what is traditional, what is modern, or what is even the hybrid. It's just a concatenation, a mixture of, it's a hodgepodge of very confused things you can find inside. So you see that a lot, maybe, for instance, in Pentecostal Christianity, and how that replicates a little bit of some beliefs in traditional African society, and a little bit of modernity too, with what Christianity is preaching. But then when you go abroad, when you go to the UK, you don't see people practicing this kind of Christianity. Then you start asking yourself the question: is it the same Christianity they are practicing? The issue is that we have to say that this is not about religion, because religion is on its own, in itself, independent of what people are saying about it and what people are doing. We have to interrogate what the different societies are actually doing and what the kind of things they believe. And the most important thing, the most important factor or feature of African society is witchcraft. Because most of the issues you look at are explained through witchcraft. And Evans Pritchard used to talk about the functionalist aspect of witchcraft. And witchcraft is used to explain why someone, your neighbor, is jealous, and why you need to go and see a witch doctor to actually bring out the person for the person to confess. It explains why people who are poisoned want to go to the pastor today. It's still the same logic, that there are some witches out there who are poisoning you or who are making your life go very bad. And therefore, you need the pastor who now replaces the native doctor or the spirit man to stand in for the traditional believer. So it's difficult to actually see what it is that is African or what it is that is actually Western in that context. So it's a hybrid of things. So if we look at why people are poor, why people are, what you talked about, a house being dilapidated and then the churches are growing and amassing a lot of wealth, it still goes back to the kind of rationality that we've imported from our traditional beliefs down to Christianity, and it has fused with modernity. So most people think that their neighbors are still their enemies, and they can actually give all their wealth to churches to get rid of their enemies because they think that's the way to get wealth. Once they get away from jealousy, from envy, from witchcraft, from poisoning and all that. So it is difficult. They don't see that, look, it's not the witchcraft. It's not actually the individuals around you who are making your life go so badly. You are being in bad faith. You are being in what John Paul Sartre calls bad faith. You are blaming your lack of making your ends meet to other people. You need to come to see the reality and take personal responsibility for that. And I think this is where the agency problem comes. People have to start taking responsibility for whatever they believe and whatever they do. This is what I think.
Okay. I think you guys have to forgive me here. I just can't help being philosophical at this point. Okay. Here's how I see the problem. Why people are overly religious, or if you like, overly political. I think it goes back to a problem that most of humanity have either failed or been unable to escape. And I see it in religion and in politics as a form of radicalization. Now, in politics, it happens as a radicalization of the relative. But in religion, it is rather the radicalization of the absolute. So now, this is what I mean.
Break it down.
Okay, let me try. Now, in politics, we know that if you look at the structure of world politics, essentially how our political parties are structured, they are always along certain lines. And the conservative or the liberal, you only hold a bit of the truth, a bit of the reality. And the other side holds a bit of the reality, such that when you put it together, you get a whole. But when you radicalize your bit, that relative portion you have, and take it to the extreme, that is a problem. In the case of religion, we take what we hold as absolute. We don't just hold it as absolute, but we radicalize it. We take it to the extreme, to the extent that we bracket out and exclude everything. Now, the next stage after radicalization of either the relative or the absolute is that we become polarized. So when I stand on this side, oh, that is me. I mean, that is all of it. You deliberately box yourself in such that everything now is characterized by that small space universe that you find yourself in, and you refuse to open up to other forms of reality. So first of all, that radicalization leads to polarization and the death of dialogue. That's why I will say I am afraid I can't help being philosophical at this point. When you radicalize your reality, you become polarized, and it boxes you in to the extent that you don't open up for dialogue. So For the Christian, salvation is exclusively through Jesus Christ. Just yesterday, I was reading an article by Professor William Lane Craig, and he was making a logical argument for that position. Now, so for the Christian, salvation is exclusively through Jesus Christ. So when the subject of salvation is mentioned, mentioning Muhammad is not even in the equation at all. At all. Now, have you seen how we have radicalized that absolute? Now, to the Muslim, everyone except whoever holds belief in the prophecy of Muhammad and Allah is an infidel. So to mention Jesus Christ and whoever else is completely out of the question at all. And it's the same thing in politics. You can see Trump supporters. Everything Trump puts out there, and which is then found and fueled by Fox News, is taken by the conservatives to be everything. It represents everything. And it's the same thing with Democrats. And you go to Nigeria, the Buhari followers, the same thing. And the other faction, Ghana, you have the NDC, NPP. We have radicalized our reality. And by that, become so polarized that we have killed dialogue. Now, so when a helpless youth, who has not got a sense of what is going on, and easily finds himself in one of these radicalized camps, he's finished. He needs some philosophical salvation to be able to come out of that kind of situation. He's finished. So that is why this is what produces fundamentalism. Huh? You see, it's so hurting that the more enlightened we become, the more fundamental we are. So the question is, are we becoming enlightened at all? Are we becoming enlightened at all? I should be able to sit with a Muslim and have an open, honest conversation and openly critique Muhammad and tell you point I don't agree about him. And we all drink our whiskey and go away. I should be able to tell the Christian, now at this point, I think Jesus was not serious. He couldn't have said something like that. I should be able to tell you this. And we should drink tea over it and go away. I should be able to tell my president that, President Nanado, no, I think at this point you are messing up. I should be able to tell the opposition that NDC, at this point, I'm sure you are not relevant at all in our politics. I should be able to critique you constructively, and you also engage me openly without the fueling in of emotions, of anger and sympathy, and I stand this, and so you are anti this. And you see, Prof, just one last point before I settle on this. When this radicalization is pushed, we now begin to swing almost everything along its line. So education, the best education is the one that flows along conservative lines or the liberal lines. Economics, the best one is either Marxist, socialist, pro-socialist orientation or the strict liberal capitalist orientation. So when you look at things like feminism and debates about sexuality, whether somebody is gay or lesbian or whatever, look at how polarized we are. When we radicalize our reality, look at how polarized we become. If you are gay, I should be able to, if I have logical argument against you, I should be able to tell you that I don't support you being gay. I should be able to say this. But immediately you open your mouth, hey, you hate gays. If you are also a homophobic person, I should be able to use logical argument to tell you your position is not supported by any evidence. When you open your mouth and you make this point, hey, trouble don't come. Because we have become so polarized. So I think we all need to start moving back in towards the center. We all need that movement towards the center. You are a human being. You can't have it all. Your reality is just a portion of it, which, like a jigsaw, has to fit into mine to make the bigger picture for you and for I. If society was structured along what you think, what kind of society would we have? So I think basically we should begin to look at it from that point of view. That radicalization of our reality, either is relative or absolute, and the subsequent polarization That is what is making us overtly emotional instead of looking for logical arguments to support our claims.
Yeah,
Wow.
I actually agree with that. Yeah,
You want to add
I
something?
actually agree. Yeah, I agree with what he said a lot. But when you talk about radicalization and these divisions with religion, I think it's a modern thing in Africa. If you look back to Africa in the 18th and the 19th century, prior to the emergence of Christianity and Islam and all that, I don't think we had people could go to wars or fight each other because of religion. Of course, there were tribal wars, but they were mostly concerned with contests for territories and for spaces or for slaves and all that. This is a modern phenomenon. This polarization, which is the import. Christianity is not an African thing. It actually emerged or sort of descended from the West, from the missionaries who actually came together with the colonial powers and dominated African rationality. And what they did, as I said, was to replace or mix Christianity with our African traditional beliefs in order to convince them that, look, what we are bringing to you is the same thing you already believe. And this was the same thing St. Paul did when he went somewhere and he said, look, the Jesus I'm preaching to you is the same Jesus that you should already know. This God
They
I'm
looked
preaching
at
to
him
you
and
is the
said,
God
"Go and
you
come next
already
time."
know. You understand? And this God will answer all your prayers and do everything for you that you want. So the sort of things we have is a feature of modernity in Africa. And it's unfortunate that Africans have not even been able to reason uh, above it. They have not transcended it. They are still sort of encapsulated or engulfed in it. They are ensconced in it. And it's difficult to disentangle their nature from it, given the rationality that already operates in the continent. And for those of us who have actually sort of moved a little bit outside, and we've seen how much religion can actually blind as much as illuminate, we have to sort of sensitize some of our other brothers and sisters that there is a way to go and reason with religion, operate with the rationality of religion, without doing away with most of the good things in life that we should be desiring. And that is tolerance, respect for each other's point of view, avoiding political tribalism, which Senior has actually mentioned, because tribalism is also another religion. Political tribalism is another religion in the world today. So these are things that I think we have to actually get clear.
I
Wow.
think at the mention of we sensitizing those back home, there's a phenomenon I've observed, and mostly it comes out very strongly on social media. You know, look at somebody who is coming out of a certain religion and thinks that he's found so much light in logic and science and everything that he thinks it is basically stupid to belong to a given religious tradition or faith. Look at how blunt sometimes we are. We think that what we hold is so true, so sacrosanct, so holy that all everyone should buy into it. But the manner in which we present it is sometimes very appalling. It's it's very appalling. Imagine I come to you, promise, and say, "Yeah, I think you're a moron. I need to give you some sense." I mean, how will you accept? How will you take that kind of opening? I come to you to tell you something, and my introduction is that, okay, promise, you're a moron. So I think I am here to give you some sense. How will you take that? So the
Yeah.
manner in which we present the message, it matters a lot. So it's not as if go and be proselytizing, go and be preaching to people to convert them. No, you are just presenting your point of view, such that if somebody happens to agree with you, fair enough. If nobody agrees with you, after all, you have made your point. That's just about the whole thing. Instead of we becoming needlessly attached to whatever I keep telling myself, I don't represent all of everything. What I know is just a tiny bit. So somebody else's knowledge fits together into mine broadens the picture a little bit. So let us learn to have that humility to be able to coach our message in a manner that is more acceptable and more inviting, what do you call it, dialogue than chasing people away. I think that is something we also have to be paying attention to.
Thank you, guys. I think I truly love the points you stressed on right now. And I will just summarize them in just two words: tolerance and respect. So I think that is very important for we to be able to have like common ground to dialogue, to discuss and talk about things without involving our sentiments. I'm gonna ask one or the last question, which I feel is very important. Maybe it's in line. I think it's in line with what we have been talking all evening. Why do a good number of Africans, young Africans, hold the Western world to high esteem? Some of them, they don't know the challenges that is out there. What they know is that I want to run away. I want to leave and go out. And I think that going out, everything falls like automatically. In line with this question is also the idea of those who are back home. Sometimes they don't know what their sons or daughters are going through outside. Some of them, as you can see, some of the girls are even held as prostitutes, or they go into prostitutions. The boys, they go, some of them they do, many are, they become thieves, they go and get involved in drugs. They don't know whether for them what is important is that he should be sending us money, you know. So why do you think, and how can you let our people, our young brothers and sisters, know that illegal migration, or let greater awareness of the risk involved in illegal migration, looking for all the best possible means to escape, like going through the sea, some of them even dying in the desert, being held as slaves in Libya or in Lebanon? How can you help our young people understand that you have to go through the right channel to get what you want, not illegally, and then you end up suffering where you go to? So
Um, so there are there are two sides, two,
yeah,
two points I want to make
okay.
in respect of this point.
Mhm.
So the first thing is you have to trace the power relation, the unequal power relation between the West and the rest. They have created a system um, which makes them already sort of like hegemonic in the international system. The Western countries dominate, obviously, in anything that we talk about. Economically, if you're talking about the best economies, you're going to be, I mean, most Western countries are going to be up there. We will talk about US, UK, right now China is rising, and then Scandinavian countries. European countries are dominating. If
Mhm.
you're talking about the best institutions, universities in the world, I don't think any African country is going to rank in the top 100. Uh, so you start first with Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, Yale, Pennsylvania, and stuff like that. So economically, educationally, our institutions are down. Now you talk about peace in most African countries. It's a big that some of the African countries do not enjoy. We lack security communities, given the security overlay in most of the regions we have in Africa. So you talk about wars in Central African Republic. Congo is still in war. We know what has gone on in most polities in Africa. There's a lot of problems going on. Even in Nigeria, we know Boko Haram is there. A bunch of issues. Now, we're talking about politics, we're talking about economics, we're talking about education. Now, we talk about the social system. Most countries in the West have their welfare states. Welfare states means that once you are not well-to-do, and maybe if you lack employment, you don't have employment, the state steps in and pays you unemployment benefits, pending when you will get your job. So the welfare state is there to protect some of them. So I mean, in most of these European Western countries that we're talking about, the welfare state is there to ensure that citizens actually have health, and benefits and stuff like that. So economically, health-wise, politically, educationally, we can see that given the history of Africa and the West, we are totally living in an unequal world. And it's a world that has been constructed through the surpluses that have been extracted from Africa all through the 500 or 600 years, the centuries of slavery and colonialism, and the total emergence of modernity, which we found in the colonial independence and the logic of nationalism, which from Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's time until the present, Africa has been trying to use to clamor for change. So we live in an unequal world. And given that we live in an unequal world, we are always going to look for something better somewhere. And that's not going to change unless there is a change in the continent itself. If the continent doesn't get transformed in these dimensions, health-wise, economically, educationally, and politically, people will keep on migrating out of the continent with the idea that the other side is always better. This is the fact. But the fact is, when they get there, they see that there are also lots of racial, I call them racialized policies meant to make your life miserable because you are not from that part of the world. So the policies are there to actually, it is a racial policy. Most of them are racialized, but it's there to make sure that you coming from a different place do not have access to some of the benefits that their own citizens have access to. So when you go there, you don't have access to the health insurance or to the welfare benefits. You have to pay higher in the UK, for instance, to pay as an international student coming from a non-EU country is different from someone coming from an EU country or from the UK. A UK citizen might pay £9,000 per year, and a non-EU citizen pays about £19,000. That is a huge difference. All right. So it is meant to discriminate and make you feel uncomfortable. Now we ask ourselves the question, why is it there is a disparity between those from the EU and those from Africa going to study in the UK? Why should there be a disparity in the fees that they pay? And when you trace back to the logic, it goes back to histories of subjugation and colonialism and looking at the other as strangely other. So these are policies that are there to make life very, very difficult for our brothers and sisters. But our brothers and sisters want to excel. They believe that it's better to get rich than die trying. And that means that regardless of what happens, they believe that if they go there, they can make it. The idea is they have that strong belief that they can always make it. And for some people, they end up in very, very serious problems. So that is the first dimension. The second dimension is, I always tell people, if you don't have any legitimate reason to go to the UK or to go to Europe or to America, don't go there. It doesn't make sense because there's a certain thing called rights of membership. And if you are a member of a community legally, you have access to other benefits. Now, if you don't have legal right to stay in the country, you can't even, there's an issue recently that a lot of people are dying from coronavirus. The illegal migrants are dying from coronavirus because they are failing to declare themselves that they're actually in the country. Because they know that the moment they declare that they're in the country, automatically that means deportation. Maybe after they take care of you, you are going to be aligned and deported. So they are dying in silence, dying in their own homes. So we can't, even the official numbers we have are not really the numbers in the countries that we're talking about. So the problem is, how do we tell people that they should stop going there if they don't have any legal residence? Because the legal residence gives you access to many other things or many other benefits of membership in those communities. So that is all I can say. Seek for legal membership and don't try to go illegally, because it's going to make your life worse than even being in Africa. I believe believe it's better to die in Africa than to die in a foreign land. That is what I think.
Home is always home, right?
Yeah.
Home is always home.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I first of all, I think I will start from where Prof left.
Okay.
It has to do with the hard facts that pertain when it comes to these two worlds. Say the third world and the first world. There are two worlds apart, and there are certain hard facts we cannot deny. For example, you can't compare University of Ghana to Cambridge. I'm sorry, you simply cannot. You can't compare University of Ibadan to Oxford. I'm sorry. These are the hard facts you can't run away from.
Yeah.
Now, but some of these hard facts are now wrapped in myth. I remember. I still remember Professor Batu. You know him more. I remember when we were having a philosophy of African philosophy, and we delved into the myth of black inferiority. Now, these hard facts over the years throughout history have been wrapped in myth and presented to the rest of the world in a manner that makes them feel inferior and then begin to think or hope that the only way out for them is either to become like them or to access their opportunities. Now, there is some sense in it, to be honest with you. For example, let me just let's face the hard facts as they are. If you are at University of Oxford, the kind of access you have, the kind of the access you have to information is completely different from any other person at all in any other university. Someone at Cambridge, someone at Harvard, someone at Stanford, the level of access, the kind of information available to that kind of person, the deposit of expertise available to that person is incomparable. That's the hard fact. So sometimes those who think they want to build themselves in a certain way genuinely have a reason to come and tap into this rich expertise and information to be able to do whatever they do, which is legitimate and fair. But there's another aspect of it. That's when you don't have a reason and the means to be able to search or tap into their opportunities, and you now want to use all other means. And that is where I want to go back to Africa. When it comes to all other means to get to Europe, I think more or less the problem is local. It reflects the pathology of our situation. That our situation is so pathetic to the extent that a young man prefers to save close to 50,000 Ghana cedis, not to use it to open a business in Ghana, but to use it to give it to an agent who will secure a visa for him to go and live and do menial jobs in Europe. I am so shocked that our politicians and our leaders are not shocked at this reality. That our traditional leaders, that our political leaders, that our religious leaders, they are not sad that this is our reality and that we are virtually doing little or none to improve the situation. How does it sound to you? Huh? And the reason why I point back to the African context is that when I was working with the radio station, my boss, Kosi Asise, once made a point. He says, in Africa, when you open business, there's a certain mentality with which everybody approaches you. It's almost like, he has become rich and he doesn't know what to do with his money. That's why he's opening business. So the politician comes with his basket to take tax from that small coins you use to set business. Your family members want to be employed into your company, not because they are coming to work to help your success,
Mm-hmm.
but because they feel you have got money, so they must be within your fold to be able to chop some. even the so-called graduates that you have employed, he comes with the mentality that, oh, he's coming to get something to chop at the end of the month, and not necessarily to make a real difference in your business. So at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to the African entrepreneur to risk it all in spite of all these odds to set a business only to fail in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And there's research, proven research, to show that businesses do a lot of businesses collapse between the first 3 years or 5 years. Why? Because they have not yet found any ground yet. So it is easy for them to be taken down by any shock at all. So there's always the need for our systems, government, to protect them. It's natural. When a goat gives birth to its young one, it doesn't run and leave it. It stands by, lick it, and support it until at least it's able to eat on its own, able to move about. Human beings, we are even more fragile. When we give birth, we take care of the little one until it gets to a certain maturity. Then we allow it to go on its own. Why is it that when somebody starts a business, African systems do not support those businesses, so that the business within the first 10 years will have the space to grow and become competitive enough and gain the ability to withstand shocks, whether they are local shocks or global shocks. So, because there are this lack of shock absorbers in our system, it is almost like throwing your money away when you save enough to open a bill to start a business. So the African young man prefers to put all his money together, give it to an agent, get him a visa. He comes to America or Europe, gets say £8 an hour, which is higher than any daily wage in Africa. So he can save enough, go back, get some small land somewhere, build a house, come and buy some Camry, and be snatching people's girlfriends. It makes sense for him to do that than to open business in his own environment. And I don't blame them. It is up to us as to why at this material moment this situation is still not. We are not saddened by that situation. It still shocks me. And so we sit down, just watch for people to go out and die. We get reports that our people are dead. Nobody is held accountable for anything, and the cycle continues. So there's a sense in which what Prof is saying, that the hard facts are there that we can't deny, but these facts are wrapped in myth, and this myth has gone down inside of us we have internalized it to the extent that it's virtually impossible to break free from it. So we prefer to die trying than to remain in Africa and be poor. And it comes that I think our Prof also made a point at the very beginning about opportunity. So all of this we are talking about is opportunity. It's about opportunity. So now another dimension which I just want to bring, even though it's not related to this strictly, is the African intellectual who prefers to stay in Europe than to go back home.
I was going to ask that question. A certain
promise, a certain promise, Ejiofor, despite his struggle, the cold, all the hunger my guy had to go through from Jiso through Baku to Budapest and now Cambridge. He goes through this hell and prepares his mind. He comes back to meet very hostile politics back at home. Hostile politics in our state, hostile politics in our universities. So a young professor who could easily cede his chair to Promise thinks that you are too young. In knowledge, we don't have anything like you. What you know, you know. And that is why the previous professor who occupied the Lucasian chair at Cambridge, when they found out that Newton's genius was unequal, he vacated that seat and they made Newton the Lucasian professor of mathematics at Cambridge. It was not a matter of who is older or who has taught in this university for long. So when Promise comes back with all of his knowledge, we want to box him We want to tell him what to do. He is the expert. You don't tell me what to do in philosophy when you are not trained in philosophy. I know philosophy more than you. So let me do it my way. You can contribute, you can help me to improve it, but you don't now take the lead. So when we come back and meet that hostile politics, I'm not just limiting it to academics. The politics in our universities are very unfortunate. I'm shocked that intellectuals who are supposed to be free, professors who have read and published and written a lot, will be that hostile or would engage in that kind of politics in our universities. And it also applies to our political world, where a young man who is a petrochemical engineer, top notch, he comes back home because he has not got any political godfather. He doesn't get any appointment into the oil sector. But our politicians would prefer to appoint somebody with very little qualification or none at all to go into that sector. So the young African intellectual, seeing all the hell he has gone through, the opportunities he has already been exposed to, knowing very well he will have no such opportunities back at home. Or even if he goes, he will have to go through the crucible to be able to access a tiny bit of that opportunity. He will, for goodness sake, he will prefer to remain here, use his head well, and also make his money. In any case, somebody said, Ghana is not my uncle's Ghana. It is for all of us. So why should I die while others are enjoying? That's always the question. So it's not as if the African intellectual is just so selfish, he doesn't want to come back. No, nobody wants to come back into that hostile environment of politics in academics, politics in the real world. It is so bad. We just have to be honest with ourselves, look ourselves in the face and say it as it is. If I will have to, at the end of my philosophical studies, depend on somebody's mercy to be appointed at the philosophy department in the University of Ghana, I'm sorry, I'm not coming. I'm sorry, I am not coming. But if that opportunity was available to me, and I know that based on my expertise, genuinely the University of Ghana needs somebody, say, in applied linguistics, or say philosophy of language or logic, and I am qualified enough, they will employ me instead of shifting one square peg from somewhere into that round hole. If I know there was that opportunity, I would willingly go back, because University of Ghana is a Ghanaian university, and I would want to impact as much as I can to as many Ghanaian youth as possible. So that lack of opportunity is keeping us away. But there's a proverb that when you are advising the cat, you also advise the salted fish. I think I will also have to advise we, the African intellectuals in the diaspora. Some of us, it's true that we've had the best of training, the best of everything. When you go back home, Oga, you are no God. You are just coming from Europe. Humble yourself. Don't go be throwing your weight around as if we have never seen your time. Oga, there are more intelligent guys back home who have not even come to Europe, far, far more intelligent than you. So when you go back, stop throwing your weight around. Humble yourself. Put your service to use where it is required, and stop throwing your weight around. Yeah, Kari, I'm from University of Sheffield, so yeah. No, that is not what we are looking for. We are looking for your expertise and the extent to which it can help all of us to progress. So I think these are the few observations I will have to make. It's not just one-sided. It's everywhere. We have to, as Africans, if we really want to make a progress, we just have to be honest and brute. We can't hide it anymore. Let's face our reality as it is. It is that bad. It is really that bad. And we should be ready.
No, I think you guys are saying something which is very important, and it's good.
The situation is so painful, actually.
And I know it's painful because
it's painful.
Because recently I read somewhere that they say in America, in most of the hospitals, you get Africans, medical doctors working there. They are the medical doctors in most hospitals in Europe and America. And then I have like almost 5 of my classmates who studied medicine in Russia, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, they studied medicine. Now they went back home to work, to get a job. Because they didn't study in Nigeria, they said they're not giving them jobs.
Imagine
And the
that.
guys are so pissed.
It's
So
about the same opportunity. You know, we've talked
yeah.
about opportunity already.
So it's about bribery. For them, if you have to get a job, you have to bribe. So this brings me to the point that what you guys mentioned is better to it's a get money or die trying.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to bring this up. Why? Again, for example, a lady studies hard in school, she finishes university, she doesn't she did the national service, now she goes to look for a job. The manager of that job wants to have sex with the lady first before giving her that job. Or if it's a woman, she wants to have sex with the man first before giving him the job. Same thing can be said to hospitals or looking for any position. Because William was talking about the inability to leave the seat, so a younger person comes in, or somebody who is more equipped for that position comes in. So you see, you have to bribe, or you need to have somebody around. Promise you spoke of opportunity, which is good, but you also that there's also in our places there's corruption, which is very high. You need to bribe somebody to get what you want. There's no honesty, or you need to sleep with a man to get a job. So I better get this or die trying. So now, how can you? God, now this brings me to the question of Richard. Richard is asking a question in the comments. How can this pathetic situation be controlled by Africans realistically? What do you say?
So um, it goes back to the political system, which Senior has already talked about. We have to start thinking about ways of going beyond what we have. I mean, most African polities that we have now are not democracies, and neither are they autocracies. So they're not autocracies, they're not democracies. And in political science, the question we ask is, what sort of regime types are in Africa? Because they're not democracies. They're not. You can't put them in autocracies. You can't say they are kakistocracies or whether they are. I mean, there are different forms of regimes. So what do you call them? They are hybrid regimes. They are hybrid regimes. And what are hybrid regimes? Hybrid regimes are polities that are hodgepodge of democratic and autocratic elements. So you see that in most African polities, we have the facade of elections. But we know those elections are often rigged. We know ethnic politics.
Nobody
It's a
wins genuinely. Nobody wins genuinely.
it's a show in most African countries. So, but we have, to sort of bring out that idea of legitimacy in the international system. We create all those systems, those institutions, to make our regimes appear as very legitimate. But we know they are rigged. So that's the first problem. Having those hybrid regimes with very false institutions that do not work. The state is just a personalized institution for some people who have captured it. So there's a serious state capture in Africa, and the state has been captured to the point of being used as a medium for amassing wealth for some people as against others. So you see that some people, I mean, Nigeria has about 97 million in poverty. That is the recent statistics. In abject poverty, as of last year, 97 million Nigerians are in poverty. You check our total population is 190 million approximately. That is roughly up to half of the country. And that is sad because it's not as if we don't have the resources or we don't have bright minds who can take care of things. The fact that we have Buhari as a president in Nigeria is a shame on Nigerians. That of all the people who are healthy and of all the people who are smarter with better brains, that the only thing we could produce
Was a
as,
Buhari.
as, as Nigeria was Buhari. And you can see how ineffective He's been all through the coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria. This all plays back into the whole thing about politics, and we Africans are going through a lot of problems because of not just the corruption but the ethnicity. It's a big issue we're not talking about. A lot of people feel that regardless of whatever happens, we should put our own people in power. We shouldn't let people from this other tribe and this other ethnic group take charge of the political system. So ethnicity and corruption and all of them play into the politics, and we have to get rid of them. How do we do that? We need enlightened, engaged citizens. And so far, I'm sorry to say, a lot of Nigerian youths who are the youngest, I mean the younger people, they are apathetic to the system. The youth apathy is so appalling. The youth are just agents of bribery. In fact, they are the ones who are used in most elections to rig them. They are the ones who wield the weapons that are used to destroy political opponents. If you look back to the history of Rivers State in Nigeria, you see how much a lot of things have evolved over the years. And it still goes back to the young people who have been mobilized as militants to contest the resources in Port Harcourt. And you go back to Boko Haram, who are those who are engaging in the violence? They are not old people. These are young people who don't have the opportunities. And the state, the people are tapping into that grievance to give them that opportunity to rebel against the state. So what I'm trying to say is just simple. We need enlightened youth who are now reflecting more about the long term than the short term. Most things we talk about are actually the short term, just the satisfaction of basic wants and basic needs. We need people who are beyond this, who have transcended this, who are now seeing that, look, what Africa needs are people who can reason properly, who can find and contest facts and fiction. People who are philosophers, not just philosophers in theory, but even in practice. These are the kind of things that we need. And it's not just about getting an accounting degree and having a certificate. The kind of education we have in Africa is so sad, because it's meant to say that, look, once you are educated in accounting, you should start looking for a job. The entrepreneurship mentality is not even there. A lot of people are not going in to be entrepreneurs, right? So how do you create that system? You need people who are thinking, because everything goes back to how people can reflect and retroject on the system and find ways of bringing about transformation. It could be through writing. We've seen how writing has actually transformed Nigeria a little bit with Wolo Soyinka, Chimamanda. These people speak to our experiences. We need good writers who can reflect on the Nigerian condition. We need good actors, good actresses, good message, good politicians. These are people who can reason properly. For the ones we have now, these are our best thieves and corrupt and corrupt individuals who are just there to satisfy their own pockets and those of their cronies. And we need to go beyond that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now,
Thank you.
Prof, I just want to. There's a Nigerian political economist, Chido Badila. He says the crop of, it's almost as if African states choose their leaders from a certain crop or a pot of leaders, and they have the same characteristics. They will sound so nice in opposition. Immediately they come to power, you see how terrible they are. And that has characterized Africa, especially after the first crop of what I will term as pure African leaders were kicked out, like Nkrumah. Is it not sad that up till date, Ghana has not been able to produce another? Is it not sad? Is it not sad? And what they have done is that we often say it as a joke, but what this crop of leaders have done is that with time, they keep telling us that education is the key, but with time, somebody said they have changed the lock to the door. So we have the key now, but the lock is changed. You can't even open it. So it's almost like at the end of the day, your degrees are in your hands and they are as useless as anything. You get the whole point. That is what our leaders have done to us. So you can be first class, summa, whatever, cum laude, no problem. But those keys remain useless in as much as you are not aligned to any political party. And it's very sad. But my substantive point has to do with this. Whether either in the society or in politics, three things are very important: wealth, power, and influence. If you have wealth, you can use it to gain influence and power. If you have power, you can use it to get wealth and influence. And if you have influence, you can use it to get wealth and power. These three things are serious capital. And the lack of it, the woeful inadequacy of it, is what is ruining Africa at the base, fundamentally. It is from this that we abstract all the other problems. The lack of wealth, lack of influence, lack of power, or hoarding of these powers in one entity, one institution, one individual, is what is making us as terrible as we are today. And you can trace it back to our culture. You look at our kingship and traditional setup. Up till now, well, I think I have to become a cultural critic. Up till now, African kings still parade themselves, some of them wearing gold that is more than the GDP of another nation. But they can't tell us something their culture has been able to produce, something of value that we have contributed to the knowledge economy or to global affairs. That we are only interested in me. So from the traditional setup where all powers, the judicial, the administrative, and the legislative powers were centered in the traditional king or ruler, we transpose that system into our constitutions, giving so much power to the sitting president that he almost becomes uncheckable, if the city said word. So we create a situation. We create a situation that a Ghanaian professor, Emmanuel Jimabwedi, he says he calls it hegemonic presidency. He says the Ghanaian constitution, it gives too much power for a good president to need and too much power for a bad president to have. This is pure wisdom. And anytime that comes to mind, I cringe at the amount of power we have given to individual. And with time, we will criticize it, but immediately we come into power, we taste how sweet power is. Oh, we will change it tomorrow. We'll change it tomorrow. And as always, tomorrow is a day away. Tomorrow never comes. Don't forget. So that has been our tradition. But I think another problem has to do with our leaders just failing us. Somebody gave a very lame excuse that our leaders are like us. So why are we expecting them to be different? I'm like, young man, I have not offered myself as a presidential or parliamentary candidate. I have not. Because I know as it stands now, I can't be the president of Ghana. When you pass yourself off and present yourself to us as a credible candidate, act as one. Now, to be able to divulge power, to diffuse that concentration of power in one person to all other quarters of our political terrain, and make sure that there are checks and balances to make the system work effectively, it takes a courageous leader, a selfless leader to do that. But what we have seen is that once any Ghanaian president comes to power, he takes the power, it is so sweet. Oh, case die. He is not changing it, though. He won't be the one to change it and go down. So all the constitutional reviews, have you observed? In Ghana, we make all the constitutional reviews, make all the recommendations, fine ones, as usual, they remain in books. So it takes courageous leaders to be able to act in a way that will change the system for good. let it be said of Nanado, let it be said of Buhari, that he broke this tradition and cleared our political space and made room for all of us to be able to contribute significantly, for there to be checks and balance, for he improved civic education. Let it be said of them, but that is not what we hear. All we hear is that they throw peanuts at us and then find some guys in the media to trumpet these peanuts, then blow it out of proportion to make it look like it is really something, and then we sing it along until especially the fragile citizens, those who are less educated, not by their fault, they fall for it and then vote to keep them. So we keep going in circles. The mistakes of the previous administration is repeated in the current administration. The mistakes Goodluck Jonathan did, Buhari is even amplifying them. The mistakes Mahama did in Ghana, Nanado is busy multiplying them by 7. And we are clapping for him. So almost every time we clap for this mess, it goes away, then we come and clap for this mess, and we go in circles without one of these leaders being able to take the bull by the horns and break that tradition. So until we're able to break that tradition, we will, no matter how holy you are as a leader, you are in trouble. And the tradition is that it's the political capture that Promise mentioned. Because a few people have been able to capture the state, what happens is that they have made of themselves political kingmakers. So if you are not in their fold, we are very sorry, have a nice day. But if you happen to be in their fold, even if you are not qualified, they will find a place to fit you. These guys have hijacked the state to their benefit, to the extent that the state is bleeding. But that is their gain. So they are not going to give up now. Perhaps that is why sometimes some people call for radical revolution. But in this day and age, I'll be slow to call for that. I think our leaders will just have to they will have to man up. Just be honest with themselves and tell us, guys, we have been messing you up for quite a long time. I think it's now time for us to give you some respect. Exactly. If they're able to do this, if they're able to gather that courage, I think we will make a headway. Instead of them giving us funny explanations, check the Minister of Information for Nigeria. When there's something, just look at the explanation he gives you. You feel like going to look at him in the face and ask, "Oh, are you all right?" It's the same in Ghana. Something happens, and the explanation you get from government quarters is, "Are you all right? Did you really think through this?" They don't respect us. They just take us for granted. But I think our leaders should begin to man up. Winston Churchill, it's not just celebrated in the UK for that alone. That guy he belonged to a class of his own. And you promise you know history a lot. Look at the post-World War II, in between post-World War I, World War II, and immediately after that. Look at the quality of leaders we have globally. Hey, the Winston Churchill, the American president who said, "Gorbachev, tear down this wall." These were leaders who thought generations ahead. In our day and age, it's almost come down to we have messed up democracy, and I am glad it has given us Trump. Nigeria, you've had your own Buhari. That is how far we've gone with democracy, and we keep going. We really don't care. So for me, I think it's up to our leaders. Unless maybe they wait too long, and what Nkrumah said comes to pass. That when people become so frustrated to the extent that they feel helpless, they feel there's no improvement coming from their leaders, they begin to that frustration. It begins to infest others, and the more it infests others, the more they gather in anger, and when they explode, it is often a bloody revolution. So let us don't wait for Nkrumah's prophecy to come to pass. We need to act now. Free up the political space. Stop making it all about you and your family. And make sure that after you, Ghana still works. After you, Nigeria still works. After you, Sierra Leone works. It is not you, for goodness sake. Our leaders have as if without them, for goodness sake, you remember Professor Lumumba, he says, in Africa, when you enter politics, you become wiser than everybody. It is true. We just simply have to admit that it is not about us. Others will come after us. And we have to prepare the grounds for them. So I hope Nanado and Buhari will be able to be the political John the Baptist of our time and open up the space for the next messiahs who will come over and prepare Africa to the next level. It's always a succession. The stories. Look at the stories of the world. There's a certain succession. Have you read the history of political succession in Botswana? Starting with Sarache Kama, that guy who was exiled in Europe after marrying a white lady. After him, there has been a certain succession and certain continuity, which has put them where they are. And that has always been the foundation of my critique for Kagame. He's doing very well. But is he preparing the grounds for somebody to come and do better than him? Or after Kagame, we will not get another Kagame in Rwanda? If he's not able to do that, then I will question his leadership in the first place. He's doing well now. But if he's not able to prepare the grounds and make the system ready to accept someone to even perform better than him, then I am sorry he's not doing anything. It's always about transition. So our institutions, everything should be shaped along that transition. Once we have it, I think we'll begin to make progress.
Wow. Really, I want to say thank you guys for this wonderful input. Thank you guys for all you've said. I'll read the comment from Pio. He said, fantabulous. You guys are doing well. That our leaders just like freaky. So for me, I think that you guys have really hit the nail hard on the head. And it's true that you said that our leaders, they have to do something. They have to take personal responsibilities. But it's also for all we as the masses or we as the individuals, we also have to recognize that we need good leaders. And it's our right, our duty during election to choose authentic, good leaders that could take us to where we are heading to. Leaders like Moses, leaders like Joshua, like good leaders that could really take Africa and take each person in the world to his or her goal. Thank you guys so much. I don't know if you have any last word to say. I think this is just like 1 minute or a few seconds, something to say.
So there's a certain comment there by someone which says something like that if education doesn't satisfy needs, it's useless or something. I want to make a comment on that because this is actually what we've been talking about tonight. And Senior mentioned that you don't need education to just be about the satisfaction of basic needs. Education should go beyond that. It should be about the good life. Now, what is the good life? It's about eudaimonia, as Aristotle would say. It's about fulfillment. And fulfillment goes beyond just having your tummy filled up with a pot of soup or having a bottle of beer every single day. That is just being like a beast. That doesn't differentiate you from a beast. What makes life good is good ideas, actually. And the idea is that the whole world is constructed on good and bad ideas. The world we see, the world of liberalism, the world of Marxism and communism, the world of capitalism and neoliberal governmentality, all of these are just reflections of ideas that have been manufactured and transported willy-nilly from some parts of the world to other parts of the world. The structural adjustment policies you see, these are ideas. The world has always been controlled by ideas. And what you see, thank you, that's actually the comment. Education is inseparable from the satisfaction of basic necessities. This is a very base definition of education that doesn't see beyond, and I think that is the problem with some Africans that we're trying to get rid of. The fact that A lot of us Africans actually think that what we need are just our tummies filled up. Seeing beyond that, because the Western world doesn't see education as just the satisfaction of basic needs. If you go to Oslo, to Norway today, or to Netherlands and other places in Western Europe, people are not talking about the satisfaction of basic needs.
No.
They are talking about other things. How do we use, for instance, Norway has, they don't use the oil income, the oil revenues. They don't invest it in the economy. They actually put it in somewhere where they are saving it for their future generation. So Norway is actually one of the most successful countries in terms of the resource curse. They don't have any resource curse. The so-called resource curse that pervades in Africa, whereby the mere possession of natural resources makes you poor or makes you prone to violence and conflict. That is not in Norway, because Norway is not even dependent on the oil reserve. It's not dependent on the oil income. They decided to separate themselves from the Dutch disease, to avoid the Dutch disease. And what they did was to go into fishing. They kept on with the tradition of fishing to use those resources as sources of income for themselves. And a lot of African countries are still based on the importation and exportation of natural resources. They still export raw materials. Nigeria depends, about 80% of our revenues depend on oil. And that is sad for the country. It's very, very sad. But that is not, education is not, it's not just about your satisfaction of your basic amenities. That shouldn't be the issue. The issue is, how do we make a polity whereby people can study whatever they want to study and still be happy? That should be the essence of education. A lot of people in Nigeria, I've observed, cannot even appreciate artwork. In Europe and in America, I go to museums and I see a lot of Europeans. I went to the British Museum in December during the Christmas. I saw crowds and crowds of people, but most of them were actually foreigners and Westerners, very few Africans. Mostly Westerners, and the British Museum is free. It's free for everyone. You don't pay anything to go there and see the artwork. And a lot of people are there just to appreciate art as art, to see the product of human invention from different parts of the world. But because of our economic issues and the fact that most of us are still on that basic level, I doubt that a lot of Nigerians can go to museums in Nigeria to look at artwork.
That's messed up.
How many Nigerians will go to the museums to look at artwork? And believe me, we're not even talking about art galleries in Nigeria. There are lots of art galleries in Nigeria. There are many of them in Lagos. Lagos is producing a lot of artists who are doing marvelous things with their hands and their talents. But we don't know them because a lot of people don't even care about it. People are concerned about that little 100 naira or £1 that they can feed on. That is all they care about. So it's not surprising that we can have this kind of comment that any education that doesn't cater for the basic amenities of Africans is as good as no education. I think this speaks to the context of Africans living in real poverty, that all they care about is just the satisfaction of their basic needs. And until we sort that problem out, these are the kind of comments we will still be having. And that is why philosophy will keep on being useless, why history will still be seen as a useless discipline, why art will not be relevant at all. Because we do not see these as relevant to our own context. And it's sad. It's sad. It's really, really sad.
Thank you. Thank you for your last long short words. It's really worth it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I really like the openness. I really like the openness, and there's no hesitation. You speak what you feel, and you say what is right. I think people can truly recognize that. So, Senior, any last word?
First of all, I think what Prof made the last point that's made Prof talk for long was uh, pegging the education, the value of education against the basic necessities, the satisfaction of basic necessities. I think when we make our basic needs the standard for education, we miss a whole lot. There's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, can you imagine the how do you call it? Scientists who investigate into how the cosmos is structured, the fundamental workings of our universe, like Lawrence Krauss and his team. What do they bring? What do we get? What food do we get from them now? But the knowledge they bring to bear and the application of it, sometimes later, even after they are dead, is what makes education invaluable across times and different epochs. So we can't limit education, or we can't make the satisfaction of basic needs the standard for measuring the quality or measuring education. But I think, first of all, I would like to make a point that what we are saying here, we are just sharing our perspectives. We are not in any way representing the totality of everything. We are inviting a dialogue. Come and disagree with us, but please add logic. Otherwise, we'll meet you with harsher logic. If you are criticizing, no problem, but throw out emotions and come along with logic. We would prefer that. Let us have open, honest, dispassionate conversation. That is what we are doing here. So we invite anybody who disagrees. That's okay, but disagree logically. I remember Obiora. You remember my
I'll be right
classmate
there.
Obiora.
Yeah.
He says he's so logical to the extent that even when he sleeps illogically, he immediately realizes it and he wakes up and then sleeps logically. Oh my goodness. So when you're coming to critique, no problem whatsoever, but at least make sure you add evidence or tell us why you don't agree with us. Then just come and say, hey, no. So the first point is that we are just sharing our perspective on issues. We are not in any way postulating some absolutes. And as I said earlier, we are not radicalizing it. We are not saying what we are saying is sacrosanct. No,
Yeah.
we could be wrong. We could be wrong. So we are just sharing our perspective. Feel free to come in and also leave your comment or critique us. That is very fair. The second point has to do with we, the youth. We simply can't throw up our hands in despair. There's still hope. So, there are a lot of us who are just doing ourselves, as we say in Ghana. Instead of you getting up and doing something on your own to improve your situation, we sit back and look up to politicians. No, they can't satisfy all our needs. That's the hard truth. No matter how rich a politician is or how rich the country is, it can't take care of its citizens, all of its citizens. You will have to do something for yourself. So it's up to us to also sit up and do what we can do at our own level to be able to improve our situation. So that's another thing. But I'm begging our leaders. We go everywhere. We see petty things that they fail to pay attention. That is sometimes disheartening. Imagine a student who studies in Ghana, University of Ghana. From day one, he uses English to study, and he gets first class in philosophy, sociology, accounting. Now, how can you tell me that person is coming to school in UK? That person still has to write English exam. What's the meaning of that? And the countries that are exempted on that list, they don't even speak better English than Ghanaians. So why? These are the simple mistakes or simple things our leaders overlook that I don't understand.
It's a good point.
Can't our foreign minister or even our high commissioner in London, can't he engage the British government and tell them that in Ghana, in Nigeria, English is our first language. In fact, I understand English more than Bimoba. I'm a Bimoba man. I understand English more than Bimoba. To the extent that I can't even think, I don't have the categories of Bimoba in my head. I can't think in Bimoba properly. That's the hard reality. Now, for me to spend my whole life speaking all the grammar, only for you to tell me I'm coming to UK, so I should go and write English again. What's the meaning of that? But our leaders forget to these small things. And it's not as if the money you pay to ride is what pays you.
Mm-hmm.
What pays you actually throw away that money. You throw away the so if they've learned to pay attention to these small things, it's not as if they should do something miraculous or walk on water like Jesus did. No, these little things, when we begin to pay attention to them, making sure that our local education, there is enough research grants for our professors to be able to independently engage in whatever research they want to engage in for, say, 5, 10 years. Imagine my government gives, say, University of Ghana, they give, or KNUST or UCC, they give one of the professors, say, 10 years to research into political transition. I'm just giving an example.
Mm-hmm.
And the money is such that the professor can actually engage masters and PhD students to take part in that research project and get awarded at the end of it all. So that at the end, whatever findings we have, we put together, inform a policy that will restructure how we transition the current democratic dispensation into a far more functional one. Why can't we do this? Is this more than us? The money our leaders are wasting is just shocking. The money we lose to corruption alone is so shocking. It's not as if we don't have it. We have it. So what we are saying is that do these little things for us. Still enjoy your power and influence, but make sure that life becomes a little more comfortable for my old lady in the village, for my uncle on his farm, for that poor cocoa farmer, for what that poor Nigerian man. That is what we are asking for. If we fail to take these measures to correct these little things, they grow and intensify and multiply and then become something we cannot tackle. So I am just asking our leaders, maybe begging them if they want, that please, there are little things that you can do that you are simply ignoring. Please do them and make life a little more comfortable for our people.
Wow.
And especially in the area of education, which matters so much to me, our leaders should pay serious attention. There are a lot of extremely intelligent African young men, extremely intelligent, that even if you are to put them at par with, say, those who make it to the Ivies of the world, I'm telling you, but they lack the opportunity. So let's create the space for these intelligent Africans to be able to also get access to information, education, improve themselves, and we don't know what they will build tomorrow that will benefit Ghana economically or educationally, or that will even help us to restructure our system. So it is all hands on deck approach. It's not just a matter of one person. Our traditional leaders, they should stop flaunting their wealth, stop wearing big clothes and big smokes, and get down to work. They should speak to our politicians. Our pastors, they should stop all the jargons and needless prayers and speak to our politicians. Our politicians should also stop showing off with all the V8s and all the luxury cars and get down to solve our issues. That is why we voted you, not to come and show us how many cars you can buy with our money. That's not the whole point. So we beg with all levels of leadership, traditional, economic, political, religious, we just have to sit up so that by our own actions, we'll begin to transform the intellects of even the uneducated, so that together we'll begin to do the right thing. We'll begin to correct ourselves and we'll begin to make progress. It will be painful, it will be slow, it will be sluggish, but it is worth it at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to all our listeners and our viewers. Thank you so much for your patience. This is the first edition. I felt that it was really a good idea for me to bring these two young African intellectuals, at least to share their knowledge with our brothers and sisters in Africa and also in the world. So I would like to just remind you guys to plead to you guys that if you have time later on, go through the comment sections. Maybe there are some comments or some questions people would like for them to be answered. Please I really appreciate you for you to do that. And so I say once more, thank you to everybody who have been with us. Thank you for the ride. And this is the first edition of this live conversation. I hope that with the
When
coming
are we
weeks,
doing it again?
I will, as a coming week, I will invite more people, bring in people, priests, religious students, anybody. If you think that you have something to share with people, just let me know. If you feel that you want me to have a one-on-one discussion with you, let me know. I will make time for that because it's good for we as young people to learn from each other. So please never hesitate. I'm really available for this, and I think that you should be available for that. Thank you, guys, and may the good Lord bless you all. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Corona is still there. Eh? Don't touch your face, okay? Use the mask, as they say. And please let us build a better Africa tomorrow. Let us build a better world. And let us always remember that we are one single humanity. We are one. Thank you, guys, and stay safe out there. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
God bless you all. Thank you. Thank
God
you.
bless
And
you.
please, people should not fall prey to Corona. Corona. People should not fall prey to all the conspiracies going about in relation to Corona. Just stay safe.
Okay.
Stay safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody